Good evening. It's Facebook Love 110. How is everybody doing? I'm thinking an awful lot about how chaotic it feels right now in a few different ways. There's a lot. The protests for George Floyd and Black Lives Matter have not stopped, despite the fact that they're not on the news every single day. It's 55 or 56 days of continuous demonstrations, mostly peaceful, which is why they're not on the news all the time, looking for equality and fairness in the way that our policing and the justice system work. But we are now seeing some very strange things happen, specifically in Portland, but the president of our country, the leader of this Republican administration, is saying that he's going to send federal troops to more cities, and only democratically led cities, which seems terribly threatening and strange, and something that an authoritarian would do. He's kind of a baby man and doesn't really understand these things, but he's trying to create the appearance of that. In the meantime, we have moms and women who feel like moms. Lots of us mother without being mothers. I don't want to leave anybody out. Moms in yellow shirts making barriers between these federal forces, these anonymous federal forces with no name tags and no uniforms. They're just wearing camouflage, which the military has already said they don't like because it makes it look as if Army soldiers are doing this, and they are not from our United States military. They are Border Patrol people who don't have any training in this kind of thing. Anyway, these moms in yellow shirts with their bike helmets and their COVID-19 masks on are creating barriers between the peaceful protesters and these federal thugs. And in the last day, men are coming with leaf blowers to blow the tear gas back at the soldiers. Tear gas, by the way, is not legally used in this country. It's not legally used anywhere. It's a chemical weapon. And only since Donald Trump has been in office has this kind of thing been happening against the American public. So this feels very chaotic, and it seems like it might get worse before it gets better. I'm watching the groups of yellow shirt moms gathering and communicating in various cities, including Chicago. I'm very heartened by that. As I said yesterday, I think that the yellow shirt moms and the leaf blower dads make these federal thugs look ridiculous, and in turn make Donald Trump and his posse look ridiculous. We have a right to protest and to ask for things to change. That's how this country was founded, and it's how we will continue to behave. But in the meantime, COVID-19 is spiking. Cases are spiking all over the world in more advanced countries like ours, and some of them nowhere close to as wealthy as the United States. They have seen a very beautiful downward trajectory of cases and little to no death at this point, and yet we're losing, again, 1,000 Americans a day. And the CDC says itself that they think the numbers are anywhere from 2 to 10 times as many as far as how many cases there are, and the deaths always lag. We don't really know how many people have died of COVID-19. It's very complicated to track that. So it feels chaotic and threatening and worrisome, and yet it's a beautiful summer. We're all trying very hard to find a way to be normal, to connect with family and friends. Just put on a damn mask. What's so hard about that? In 1918 and 1919, Americans argued about this, and guess what? The ones who wouldn't wear masks, a lot of them died. And the ones who did survived. Another friend of mine just said to me last week that her great-grandfather was a doctor in Iowa during that epidemic in 1918, 1919, and he lost 2 patients total. And they were the only 2 who argued with him about what was the right thing to do. He told them all to go home and rest and stay away from other people for 2 to 3 weeks. And they all survived. So, because of all this, I don't want to read poems today. I have been watching videos and reading tributes to John Lewis, who continues to be so inspiring. It's so sad that he's gone. A friend of a friend shared a beautiful story about John Lewis, and then I have some quotes from him. So today, my Facebook love is a story told by John Lewis, and then a quote from him. Pardon me, it's kind of a small font, so I hope I'm not going to squint. Oh, I'll put on my glasses. Ta-da. Okay, this is a beautiful story told by John Lewis in answer to the question, why was his book titled Walking with the Wind? About 15 of us children were outside my Aunt Suniva's house, playing in her dirt yard. The sun began clouding over, the wind started picking up, lightning flashed far off in the distance, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. I was terrified. Aunt Suniva was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller, with so many children squeezed inside, small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Suniva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend, and then a corner of the room started lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky, with us inside it. That was when Aunt Suniva told us to clasp hands. "Line up and hold hands," she said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift, and so it went, back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another. The walls around us, seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed. They came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come. And we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind. A story by John Lewis. This is our home. This is our place. The government is not the country. We are the country. We choose to walk in love and compassion, in justice, equality. And we can ask for it over and over and over again, as firmly as we must, until we're listened to. Theodore Roosevelt said, patriotism is about the people, it's not about the government. We are not pledging fealty to the people representing us if they don't continue to do what they're supposed to do, or in some cases, if they never have done what they're supposed to do. John Lewis was a poet, a righteous man. His life was a call to action for all of us. Here are a few things that he said which really helped me. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful. Be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. He said, you are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. When the night seems interminable, we must be one another's light. Let's take some time to feel like crap, and then let's pick ourselves up and continue getting into good trouble. That last bit is from my friend. Diminish your light was the last line of what John Lewis said. It's fine to feel like crap. This is very challenging, and most of us have not ever faced anything that takes so long to fight. I said early on when we were sheltering at home in March, which I think back to as a time when I was just in daily trauma for 3 or 4 weeks, that I woke up one morning and remembered that the suffragettes spent 100 years getting the vote. They were mocked, beaten, thrown in jail, treated like little girls. Why on earth would a woman want to vote? Why could a woman vote? Her brain isn't even like a man's brain. Well, we know that's crap. And they kept trying. And the civil rights movement has never stopped. Never. Another thing that inspires me, the first march in this country was a women's march. Those yellow-shirted moms, they are the daughters, the granddaughters, the great-granddaughters of those suffragettes, those brave women. All of us need to be brave and be light. Make a stir. Be of good heart and get into good trouble. This is Facebook Love. See you again. Bye-bye.